Hello, how are you? This lens here is the Tamron 55 to 200mm f4 to 5.6 telephoto zoom lens. This lens here is the Canon EF 70 to 200mm f2.8L. If you were following along with those numbers, you'll know that this lens here has a greater focal length range than this lens here. And essentially both of these lenses can frame up identical photographs. However, this has got more range on the wide side. Why is this lens here so much bigger and so much more expensive? Okay, first let's cover the price. This lens here, the Tamron, you could pick up secondhand $100, $150. This lens here, the Canon, secondhand you could pick it up for $1,500, maybe closer up to $2,000. So why is it so much bigger? And why does it cost so much more? In very simple terms, the answer comes down to the speed of the lens. Now, I'm not talking about how fast you can get it onto the camera or how fast it can focus on your subject. I'm talking about how fast it lets light into it. You remember I mentioned the Tamron has an aperture range of f4 to 5.6. That is to say it's f4 at its widest and f5.6 at its most telephoto setting. The Canon lens has a fixed fastest aperture of f2.8, which means it can be f2.8 right along its whole range. Now, although there may not seem like a huge difference between 4 and 2.8, there is actually leaps and bounds that need to come into play in order to create a lens that's able to do that. Particularly getting a fast aperture number with a long telephoto range is very, very challenging. From the time the light hits here to when it gets onto the sensor, there is a whole heap of complex mathematics going on inside here. As we know, every f-stop there is double the light being admitted into the lens. Now, in order to double the light admitted into the lens, the actual lens itself has to be 1.4 times larger in diameter in order to let in double the amount of light. So if we think about that, the Tamron has the fastest wide open aperture of f4, and one stop faster than that, i.e. double the light, is the f2.8. By all accounts, the lens diameter here has to be at least 1.4 times larger than this one here in order to let in twice the amount of light. Now, making a lens diameter wider doesn't just make the front element bigger. The glass also has to be thicker. It has to be more elements in between to deal with distortion and that sort of thing. And it complicates the design schematics through the roof. When it comes to fast aperture lenses, you're going to pay the most amount of money for the least amount of increments. But unless you spend the money, there's always going to be a better, faster option out there for you. So that's the answer, really quick and really brief. The whole equation when it comes down to size and cost comes down to how fast the aperture is. The more light it claims to admit, the bigger, larger, heavier the lens is going to have to be. And more expensive. Hope that helps. Fast aperture, small number, large money. Small aperture, high number, small money. Sorted.